Good afternoon, welcome to the Keith Andrews Show. As ever, we're live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter every Thursday afternoon at 12:30, available to download from the usual platforms. In the hot seat this week, back from his jaunts in America, Mr. Owen Sheen.
Yeah,
thanks for coming in, pal.
Jaunts indeed, that's exactly how I described them as well. So yeah, thanks for giving me the accurate title there. Good to be back.
Was it a good week? Have you acclimatised back in okay?
The weird thing is, you're not when you get jet lagged from the United States, you're supposed to go and wake up at 4 p.m. But something strange has happened where I'm waking up at 4 a.m. every morning on the dot, and it's
Which
perfect.
is handy.
It is very, very handy. So I'm delighted with this situation with jet lag right now.
You had a good time?
It was excellent,
Nice
very,
break.
very good.
Recharge the batteries?
Recharged the batteries for sure. I'm not sure that I killed the batteries or recharged them, but certainly something happened to the batteries.
Good. You're only young, you're supposed to do that. There's a lot of football teams at the moment, obviously coming to the end of the season, getting ready for their annual trips away. I was chatting to a few of them over the last few days. I can't say I'm jealous though. I don't think I'll be able to do it anymore.
Are they pretty intense?
I don't know. I now they certainly were. I remember going to Vegas when I was 20. Someone pulled out, and you have to be 21 in Vegas, obviously. So probably shouldn't be even saying this. So I had someone else's ID, getting in places, and we went with Wolves. And I was the only one. The rest of the lads were like 28, 30 years of age, senior pros, and I jumped on the trip the last minute. And that was quite intense.
So well done for confessing to a felony right there, Keith. You're not barred.
There goes the green card.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure you were still in search for the green card, weren't you?
I don't know. But I couldn't do it now. These trips to Vegas, 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd be able for.
I'm sure there's, we were kind of chatting off air a little bit as well, that I guess you get a little bit of that in the last week of the season if everything is wrapped up. But granted, you're still in the UK, you can't go anywhere abroad. But I'm sure that's a very enjoyable week if, say, you're a Huddersfield or a Manchester City and everything's done and dusted.
Well, Huddersfield went rasher last night, didn't they?
Yeah, well, so I've heard. So you've been telling me.
Chelsea get the draw, safe. Everybody assumed that 3 points, top 4 race still open come Sunday. Didn't go to plan from Chelsea's point of view. Huddersfield miraculously stay up just because they got a lot of the work done early parts of the season when they started so well. It's been like that for the last few weeks, and they knew the run-in they had. Very difficult finishing against Man City away, Chelsea away, Arsenal at home was always going to be trick up to pick up points. Just picked up 2 points away to Man City and away to Chelsea. Yeah. Phenomenal. So they get themselves into the middle of London, out on the rip in their tracksuits. Love it.
Absolutely, it has to be done. I mean, when in Chelsea, I mean, not that none of them are Huddersfield people, but I'm sure none of them really live in the centre of Huddersfield. But I'm sure they've become acclimatised to the Huddersfield way, and it's like, wow, this is Chelsea, the bright lights of posh London. Let's go on a mad one, which I'm sure they did, and well deserved. Everybody is delighted that they had the ability to go on a mad one last night.
Well, I was at Man City, so they lifted the title on. They got presented with a trophy, I should say, on Sunday in that 0-0 affair at home to Huddersfield. So last night I felt the shackles will probably come off. The celebrations probably happened last week. Maybe that had influence on the 0-0. Huddersfield miraculously had more shots on target on Sunday than Man City, which is shuddering to even comprehend that. So last night I'm going to the game. Brighton safe because of the result against Manchester United on Friday evening. Great performance by them and magnificent achievement for them to stay in the league. I was really disappointed last night in the atmosphere. It was Yaya Toure's farewell game, so kind of on a sidebar, it basically turned into Yaya Toure's testimonial, because that was the tempo in which the game was played. This was after the game. Yaya coming onto the pitch. Players stayed on the pitch at the end of the game. Pep, he had his brother there, all his family. So look, he's been a magnificent servant for that football club. That was his 3rd Premier League title that he's won. Obviously very, very sparingly used over the last year plus under Guardiola. But if we go back to his earlier years, he was some player, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was absolutely key to kind of the foundation of Manchester City coming into the Premier League's elite. Obviously the money was the main reason they were there, but what did they do with the money? They bought a player like Yaya Toure, the likes of David Silva, the likes of Sergio Aguero, and having Vincent Kompany in the books as well helped. But if you look closely into those fans' eyes, I don't think you actually see a group of people actually cheering on Yaya Toure. I think they're all just really scared, and they're terrified of what might happen if they don't cheer loud enough or look happy enough in respect of Yaya Toure, because he would flip a lid if he didn't get a good enough send-off last night.
I think he is properly appreciated though, and you've mentioned those players, that core that got them on the road to success, the likes of Kompany, Zabaleta, who's left the building, Joe Hart, who's still theoretically a Manchester City player. They were the the core of what brought them the success. And they've built on that, company obviously being the main one in terms of the captain and all that. But him, in terms of what he's achieved in his career, the way he's played, the marauding type player early part of the years, latter years, more sitting and controlling and probing. He was a fine player. He really was.
Without question. And like, it is very easy to just say about Manchester City, look, they're a bottomless pit of money and they were obviously going to win a Premier League title eventually. But you look at what they did when they initially had that sort of money and they bought somebody like Robinho. Look how that turned out. I mean, you do have to sign smartly at the same time. You can't just say, who is the most expensive player I can possibly sign? Kind of like playing FIFA and sorting by your actual transfer value and signing on that front. That's how Manchester City went about their business until this era, which saw the likes of Toure and Silva and Aguero and company and Joe Hart and the likes of them emerge at the club. So huge credit has to go to the club for that and for allowing Yaya Toure to continue his blossoming career, which we had obviously seen at Barcelona, and to actually get his hands on him, because it wasn't just Manchester City who wanted this guy. I mean, they were the guys who got his hands on him, and he clearly saw something in the club as well, that they had huge ambition, and it was just clearly a symbiotic relationship. I'm not sad to see him go, though. I don't think anybody...
No, I think time is, and realistically it should have probably been 12 to 18 months ago, realistically, because of Guardiola's ignorance. Let's not forget, he was the one that sold him from Barcelona. I've seen a few clips of the pre-match warm-up. I was there, nice scenario. I've got a couple of friends on the staff of Manchester City, actually, the behind the scenes, the kit men. I met an Irish sports scientist there last night. Forgive me, I can't remember his name because I met quite a few people. I was quite fortunate to get in and around. I was there earlier, like I said, I think it was about 4:30, and got in and around the dressing room. He didn't quite allow me to get my phone out on video so we could see some of the clips, but obviously the facility's unbelievable. The dressing room, the way it's set out in a circular fashion, manager comes into the middle, tactics board, analysis board behind them, all around, so it's not like one corner and the other corner's far away. It's moulded into that way, and you see the coaches changing room, Pep's office.
What's Pep's office like?
Not flashy in the slightest. Very simple, I would say. I wouldn't go as far as IKEA, but yeah, fairly simple. And I did mention this to my friend, who's two friends actually, the kitmen, they were kitmen at Bolton and Blackburn during my time there, and I've always kept in touch with them. And I said, do the opposition staff come in after a game? And he said, no, not really. And I said, well, is that kind of frowned upon? Because it's a tradition in England that you come in afterwards, you have a beer, you have a glass of wine. But it seems to be going out of the game, the less and less.
It's very businesslike.
English, British managers, and it's certainly in the Premier League. Like, how many of them are there? I think it's something that Brian Kidd would have tried to instill. But no, it's something that's becoming more rare and rare.
Yeah, for sure. Like, we obviously saw it multiple times in the FA Cup, and that is the only real time we see it, when a club get the opportunity to go to Old Trafford or get the opportunity to go to the Etihad Stadium, where it's like, this is my one opportunity to actually share a touchline with Pep Guardiola, and who knows, we may share a glass of my favourite red wine afterwards and stuff. And I think that there's a nice tokenism in that, but I think ultimately the way football has gone, there is no place for it now, really. It's the least surprising tradition.
You see the way Pep is with the media. It's something that he just has to do, and we've seen him get very tetchy at times, more so last season, but even this season on occasion, if the question doesn't quite sit right with him, depending on the mood, because his focus is purely on his players and what happens on that pitch, and if he sees something on the pitch, he tries to fix it there and then. If that doesn't happen, he's already planning for the next game and planting the seed, preparing for that next game. So really, media, interviews, and certainly entertaining opposition staff, it's not really high on his agenda, is it?
For sure, and it doesn't play into his thoughts at all. It's the one key difference between him and Jose Mourinho, that Mourinho clearly sees the media as a tool and probably gets too obsessed about the media and plans what he's going to say in his post-match interviews and in his press conferences. And I think in a strange way, Jurgen Klopp is actually more in the Pep Guardiola side of things. Of course, he's far more amicable, but I think he thinks less about it. He doesn't plan, like Jose, what he's going to say or what player he's going to target or what player he's going to hang out to dry this time. He just likes the media a bit more, but is similarly as thoughtless about it, for lack of a better term, as Pep Guardiola. But the other thing you saw last night, I understand, is a tunnel club, which is something I'm very interested in, because you paid 200 grand or something for
the cobwebs off your MasterCard and go and invest in that, because that is a serious way to watch football. The tunnel club at Manchester City, I didn't even ask how much it was, but oh my God, phenomenal. It's like going to the Ritz.
As in, I kind of thought you were being sarcastic there for a moment, but you're not.
It's just like a 5-star hotel.
But
and the best view you could possibly get. Unbelievable service. I didn't see the food, but you can see the luxurious seats, etc. And we've all seen the clips of it. They can see into the tunnel. That's probably proper fans. But in terms of how to watch a football game, corporate style, as good as it can get, that's got to be right up there.
So what is it? It's on kind of like the very first tier, and then you go down a couple of steps.
The best view, so you're slightly elevated, right above the tunnel, but you've got access to actually walk down steps and be either side of the actual tunnel. Glass where the players can't see out, you can only see in. Phenomenal. I'd say there's a few people get a little bit leery in that, but listen, we'll move back on to that. We've got someone quite special on the phone. Mr. Steven Reid is joining us. Really, thanks for taking the time.
Keith, how you doing? Hi, Owen.
Hey, Stephen.
Really, I want to talk to you about Man City in a little bit in terms of how you set up against a team like that and how difficult it is. But I want to bring it back. I joined Blackburn in 2008. You'd already been there for, I think it was 5 years. Been very successful. I'll never forget my first song that I had to sing. You were probably the only friendly face in the whole room. We played West Ham away down in London. You were the only friendly face in that room. Everyone else was just wanting you to fail. I swear to God, I'll never forget that.
Keith, don't worry about that. I was. It's probably pats on the back, but I would have loved to have seen you fail. But I can't remember what you sang, to be fair.
I kept it simple. I think it was Molly Malone.
I'm sure it's decent.
Yeah. Listen, we unfortunately never got the chance to play together for Ireland. We simply missed each other at that time. I remember joining Blackburn, and obviously I'm coming there thinking if I play any football here, I'll be doing well with the midfield that they already have. But it was simply down to your injuries, and I've been reading bits and bobs on what you've been saying. And tell us a little bit, because I would have seen you obviously at close quarters at Blackburn, and then when we played together at West Brom, the difficulties you had. Tell us a little bit about how frustrating it was.
Keith, to be fair, and it's a massive shame because after the move, obviously started my career at Millwall, got the move to Blackburn. Took me a little while to adjust to that, because one day I was in the dressing room, no disrespect to the dressing room at Millwall, but it was literally fly up to Blackburn, agreed the deal, start training the next day, go into the changing room. You've got the likes of Andy Cole in there, Dwight York, and a lot of big hitters. And it took a little while to adjust, but when I finally got there, it was almost that goal I scored at Wigan was almost like a light bulb sort of moment in my Blackburn career, and went on to have a really good season in centre midfield. It was looking promising. Signed a new deal at the end of the season with Mark Hughes. We finished 6th in the league, and everything was going rosy. And it was literally from that summer. It was just started with a back injury. Got back from that after a couple of months, and went into a tackling training and got a really nasty cruciate, ruptured my cruciate ligament, but quite a lot of cartilage damage as well. And that was the moment where it was just managing myself till the end of my career. And, and your arrival was probably a lot to do with that, because I don't think I was ever going to, and I don't think I ever did recover fully from that. Luckily, I could drop back into right back later on in my career, but that cruciate ligament injury was the signal to manage the knee and just try and hang in there, really.
When you talk
about, as it sounds,
when you talk about manager, I would have seen it obviously, but you've said as well, when you look back at pictures and your family down through the years, you living on the Game Ready, and Game Ready for people that know it's basically a compression ice unit. You were on that non-stop, and the work that you had to do in the gym with the physio, sports scientists, whatever, was phenomenal, wasn't it? Just to get on the pitch and be ready for a match on Saturday.
Well, remember Lammy, obviously there. Well, of course you will. He was
a character.
Head of S&C, and we set up a little 9 a.m. club where me and him would just go to the far end of the indoor pitch that we had at Blackburn, and it was every morning. Me and him for the first 3 months of that rehab, I was just working on my left leg because I couldn't work on my right leg because it was complete non-weight bearing for 2 months. And to be honest, a lot of you lads must have come in the physio room, I would have, and seen what my leg looked like after 2 months and thought, I'm not sure I'm going to get back from this, because it completely wasted away because I couldn't put any weight through that leg for 2 months. So you're literally starting again with that leg. And it was, you don't realise at the time, but looking at it now, some really, really dark moments in that not even just the rehab and recovery from that. It was almost daily. You know, sometimes you'd wake up and you might be playing against Chelsea and you're hobbling down the stairs and you're thinking, how the hell am I going to deal with Hazard today when you're struggling to get down the stairs? It got as bad as that.
It's not something people realise, though, is it? In terms of, you know, they just see players that are out injured for 3, 6, 9 months, whatever, or even when they come back, what they have to do and the sacrifices they have to make just to get on the grass.
That's on top of, Keith, that's on top of actually what it takes to play at that level anyway. Let alone thinking whether you're going to get through the game. Is the knee going to hold up? Am I going to get injured? You're just, at times, just trying to get through the game. But it's a stressful enough industry and job just to deal with playing football at that level anyway, let alone playing in it when you're 50, 60% fit for probably the last few years of my career. Definitely. You know, because you had some as well with your Achilles.
Yeah, later on.
Yeah, I had that as well, and I remember us talking about that at the time. And it's very well. I don't think I ever played feeling 100%. That's for sure. I don't think many do.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it? Tell me when you started. Like, we would have touched on it and talked about retirement. More so, I think, when we would have played together at West Brom under Roy, where we'd be travelling down together and up and down, we'd be chatting or whatever. When did you really start thinking about the coaching side of it? Probably that initial injury at Blackburn. Went into that tackle with David Bentley and done my cruciate, and probably on the rehab back from that, and especially when I got back from that injury and it was still persistent swelling on the knee, and the doubts start creeping in whether you're going to get back playing, and you've got to then start thinking about what are you going to do after? Because it's not going to last forever. So I sort of started preparing then, really, probably that last couple of years at Blackburn, but especially at West Brom, when I had to manage my body even more so then. And Steve Clark came in and had a really good relationship with him. We would talk to each other, regularly, and he would ask me things and I would ask him things, and that was sort of the beginning then. And you obviously know how Rory works as well, Keith, is that, you can't help but just be, blown away by his enthusiasm and love for the game. And I continued that and continued sort of keeping an interest in what we was doing. I had many more injuries later down the line and just carried on with the coaching badges. Most summers would be going away and gaining the qualifications and doing little bits and pieces with the 18s and with the 21s. And if you are doing all of those things and being a good pro and doing it right, then the opportunities, I believe, will come, because I've already worked for two managers that were my managers when I was playing. So I don't think there's any, hiding away from the fact that if you do things correctly when you are playing, then doors should open. You've already mentioned Steve Clark. You've coached with Yap Stam. You get to the playoff final last year with Reading, so close to getting to the Premier League. Then you take a little bit of a break from it. Roy comes calling, as Crystal Palace appoint him. Obviously, we've played under him. Tell us what he's like, because it's different when you go onto that side of the fence and you get into his inner sanctum. What are his strengths? I've seen it on the coaching pitch, and you've mentioned his enthusiasm.
Yeah, but it's got so much more. Coaching, without question, basic principles in how we attack, his patterns of play. Defensive shape is massive daily and weekly. But he's just got an aura about him. He's got a calmness about him. He treats everyone with respect and well. He can speak 5, 6, 7 languages, which gain some respect as well in the dressing room, because we've got a few French-speaking players, and it might sound a small detail, but sometimes he might speak to a couple of the boys in French, and that just gives him such a respect from individual players from different nationalities, and he treats everyone the same. Goes into the physio room daily in the morning. There's some managers that don't go in there at all. Like, when you're not involved and not playing, you're injured.
They avoid you, don't they?
That will surprise a lot of people, that not all managers would do that, but he's in there checking on the injured players, treats everyone exactly the same around the training ground, whether you're a first team regular, whether you're the captain, or whether you're one of the young under 23s. He's got time for everybody, and I think that just brought a good feeling to the place especially when Roy came in, but obviously a couple of days later I joined him. But I think that straight away lifted the whole club. How
much have you enjoyed pitting yourself against the best teams in the Premier League, and what's the difference between, and I don't mean disrespectfully to Burton Albion, but last year you're setting up a team to play Burton Albion, this year you're setting up teams to play against Manchester City and Liverpool. How difficult is that?
The main, I go back to when we played at that level as well, and especially myself at right back, always found that in the Premier League you can be, you might sit back at 0-0 after an hour and you think, we're doing okay here. We're in the game. We're playing well. 2 minutes later, against the big boys especially, you can be 2-3 down, and you're wondering where that came from. It's just I think just mentally you have to be so switched on when you're playing in the Premier League, because at any one moment someone might create a bit of magic, something special, and we saw that when actually we played Stoke in the game that we finally stayed up, and Shaqiri's sort of that player in that team. When you're doing your pre-game meeting and your analysis, every team in the Premier League has got one or two players that can hurt you, and you give away one chance and you can find yourself behind. I think in the Championship it might be 3 or 4 chances, 3, 4, 5 chances, and you'd be behind. But Premier League, if you're not switched on at every moment, then you get punished.
But that is where Roy is very good, isn't it? In terms, you've already spoke about that defensive setup that he does, time after time on the training ground. I don't know what you felt. I don't know whether I even spoke to you about this, but what I felt playing on the Roy was I didn't particularly enjoy the training Monday to Friday as much as I would have at other clubs. But I enjoyed Saturday at 3 o'clock because I knew exactly what I was doing, and I felt like I looked a better player because of those patterns you've mentioned. I had options on the ball. We knew what we were doing. It was clockwork. If we lost, it was probably due to those moments of brilliance that you've just been speaking about. But it certainly wasn't down to players playing like mavericks.
Yeah, no, it ends up becoming a habit, and I don't think it was ever going to be I know he's come in and we found ourselves in the position we're in with, a couple of games to spare. We've been safe in the league, but it wasn't ever going to happen overnight. We came in after 4 games and we lost the further 3, getting battered off a City and Man United. Within them first 3 games, we lost against Southampton 1-0. It was never going to be a quick fix. It takes time for them habits to become more natural. But what I do see and what I do take pleasure in is seeing certain goals that we've scored, certain patterns of play. Wilfried Zaha's goal that's probably one of my goals of the season. Lucas played him an unbelievable ball in behind, and Will scored with a header. Yeah. And that's one of my favourite goals, because that's what we see and what I've seen from Roy's sessions virtually every other day.
Really, tell us a little bit about Zaha. I've played against him, didn't like it, have to be honest, in terms of when he faces you up. But the plaudits that he's got this season, I think he's deserved them, because we all see the kind of dribbling, mazy runs he goes on. Look, they're brilliant, and how you deal with that, I'm not quite sure when he's on it if you're the opposition. But I tell you what's massively impressed me. It's as if he wants it more than any other player. He is proper, and it's his character for me that has shone through this year more than anything.
I actually had a chat with him yesterday, and I just said to him, I just love the way you go out there and just enjoy playing. Like he literally goes out there training, playing like he was playing with his mates in the park. There's no fear in him, and probably something that goes a bit under the radar is how strong he is and how much he wants to be out there, because he's had 2 injuries this season. Both occasions were probably 3-month injuries, and he's got back in 6 weeks from them. He's that desperate to play. They're the bits that people don't see. They maybe look at the negative headlines, which he wrongly gets, and what he's had this season. But his desire to get out there, to play, to put his body on the line, and perform has been incredible. But having said, he's some talent as well. You know, there's been moments of individual brilliance that maybe Damien Duffy is prime when we played alongside him, but seeing stuff from him that I've never seen. He receives the ball in such tight areas, and you know, he can be a magician with the ball.
Stephen, it seems from just listening to you over the past few moments that the biggest injustice that's been done all season has been, I guess, the approach towards Roy Hodgson when he was appointed as Crystal Palace manager, that there was this bizarre train of news saying the age difference between Roy Hodgson and his players, that he's the oldest manager in the history of mankind and all that sort of stuff. But from what you've been saying here, it seems to be the exact opposite of that there are a lot of young managers who could learn from Roy Hodgson, who could learn from his approaches, and I'm sure you've learned a lot.
Massively. Infuse it, because you get moments during the season, you know, where age is, for me, the age part of it is irrelevant, because he's still the most enthusiastic every day. He comes in on days where managers, you know, might not wander out on a Sunday to take a session if there's a small group, but he's out there. He's never takes a day off. It's been incredible. And I remember actually when he got the England job and I was still at West Brom, there was sort of one or two negative headlines, and I think I remember saying at the time, you can't comment on a manager like Roy Hodgson unless you've worked alongside him or with him, and all those that have got the utmost respect for him, the way he works, and I think that enthusiasm has rubbed off on the players. It wasn't a case of after the Stoke game, right, let's give the lads off till Thursday or Friday like some might do. We've been back in on Tuesday, Wednesday, working on our shape again, and the lads bought into that, because I think they actually looked round and thought, actually, that's what's got us in this position. This is what we do now. There wasn't a case of we're safe now and take the foot off the pedal. We want to finish the season on a high. I think it'd actually be a disappointment now if we got beat at the weekend and ended up finishing, 14th or 15th. I think we'd end the season a little bit disappointed.
Before you go, I just want to ask you a little bit about the Ireland team. Going through a little bit of a transitional phase. We've got some friendlies coming up in the next few weeks. What's your thoughts on it at the moment? Obviously, we're disappointed with the World Cup campaign not to get there. Look, nobody says there's any guarantees, especially for the World Cup, but Euros, a few new players coming into the equation. Do you have an air of optimism around it?
Well, I hope so. It might be a case of now, we sort of said it time and time again over the years where, maybe it is time for, a bit of fresh blood into the squad and a little bit more youth. But then again, I still look around and wonder where they're coming from. Those individual players that have always had that bit of brilliance that have played for us. We still seem to have a lack of, players that are playing in those top sides in the Premier League, especially. And it still is a concern for me where that next group is coming from. But I think it is a case for now almost regrouping and starting again, and maybe blooding one or two in. Obviously, even the likes of Wes Hoolahan now, he's left Norwich in the summer, and it may be a case now of going back to starting again and integrating a few new faces and some fresh bodies into that squad.
I sincerely hope we can get it right. But listen, really, thanks. Appreciate that. Let you get back to walking your dog. I know you're a big fan of that.
I might have to get on the game ready, Keith, actually. The knee's a little bit swollen.
Have you been running again this morning?
No, I actually played in a charity game last Sunday, and
still feeling it?
The knee's absolutely, it's just blown up again, and I think that's it now. I think that's my last appearance out there.
Listen, I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks, pal. I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, Keith. Cheers, buddy.
Diamond of a fella, and I meant that as well when he my first song at Blackburn. Because you're obviously nervous. I was going from MK Dons to Blackburn, and he mentioned he was in a dressing room when he went with Andy Cole, Dwight Yorks. Wasn't quite on that level at Blackburn at the time, but still some big hitters in the dressing room. Team players that had done really well. He mentioned they'd finished 6th in the Premier League, so I was very, very nervous, and he was certainly a very, very friendly face, so get on really well, really.
How did Molly Malone go down in that dressing room?
I rattled through it as quick as you could. I was quite nervous actually.
I'm sure there were some people relatively inquisitive about the song. It's like, well, I've never heard this.
It was a multinational squad as well at the time,
Yeah.
so a few of them would have been thinking, what's going on there? But look, we will move on. Thanks for joining us on that. Move on to another former teammate. John O'Shea announced his retirement. 116, 117 caps. Phenomenal career for Ireland. Probably anticipated it. He's had such a contrast in his club career. It's staggering.
As in, you mean in terms of
Man United to
success?
Sunderland.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course.
250 odd games for
I thought you meant international
Man United.
club.
And then Sunderland has been... I'll tell you what I will say about that. If he does have plans of going into coaching and into management, I would anticipate he will have learned more from his time at Sunderland than at Man United. Because I think you're at Man United, certainly during Sir Alex's years, you're in a bubble. It's all about the top four. It's all about Champions League. It's all about challenging for the title. Obviously, he will have learned a lot from that. And I'm not taking away from the education he would have got there and what he would have learned off Sir Alex. But I'm talking about the amount of managers he's had at Sunderland, the disappointments, the scrap, the fight to try and avoid the relegations, then the relegation, dropping down this year, another relegation. I think long term, in terms of what he will have taken from that, will have been a hell of a lot.
You're probably right. I think just in terms of the type of player that he is, because he still is a football player, let's not forget, I think he is well equipped to go into management because of those adaptability skills. And I'm not sure, is it just versatility or is it an actual ability to just take whatever situation he's in and just get on with it and put his best foot forward? Because of, you know, you talk about players who are moved around the pitch like John O'Shea was. He could play across the back four, he could play sometimes in midfield, and I think you kind of downplay those players sometimes. I think it's like, oh, he's a utility player.
The versatility, you're right.
And they don't get enough credit for why they are the utility player.
Well, he became the new Phil Neville at Man United, didn't he, in terms of that versatility and no matter where it was. But you're right, he was really, really effective no matter where he played. And then the other thing on top of that was, when I first went into the Ireland squad, it was 2008, he was still well and truly still at Man United. It was a case of, he's at Man United, he's got Champions League commitments. I'm sure he's under pressure from Sir Alex. I'm sure he's under club pressure. Maybe not come to this friendly every time. Every time, regardless of playing Champions League games. I remember one Champions League game when he played, it must have been the Barcelona game. We were all in. He obviously joined us later. Was it 2009 maybe, I'm thinking, ish?
Well, they certainly played them that year.
Yeah, he and we ran a little book on who first goal scorer and all the rest. I think Hunty ran that book and lost a fortune, which the lads were delighted about. But utmost respect for his desire, patriotism, to turn up time and time again, and that versatility always came into play.
I wonder, is he underrated? Like, I mean, is he underrated for the skillful player that he is? Because there's no way you can play for Alex Ferguson for 12 years without being unbelievably good at football. I mean, I don't think people will give him the credit for the skillful footballer that he is. That people are like, oh, he had great heart, very, like, a man of integrity, which he is, of course. Yeah. But he was also...
Sometimes those words are dirty. They're not given the respect that they should be given.
Exactly.
You know, the dependability, the safe hands, all these type of words, and they're just kind of discarded.
To be a safe hands for Manchester United, you've got to be a hell of a player.
Yeah, it's not Ackland and Stanley we're talking about here. And again, no disrespect to them, because we had them on last week and they were diamonds.
I've also got one other problem with John O'Shea and the reaction to John O'Shea. People keep talking about Gelsenkirchen as the highlight of his footballing career. Across international and club, that is not the highlight of his career. The highlight of his career is nutmegging Luis Figo, and I don't want to hear anything else about it. Gelsenkirchen is the number 2 moment of John O'Shea's career.
I'll give you that. Right, with the Ireland squad's just in. Martin O'Neill's just announced it. Not sure if we can get it on the screen. If not, I'll have a little rattle through it. Goalkeepers: Randolph, Westwood, Colin Doyle, Kieran O'Hara, Ian Lawler, Conor O'Malley from Peterborough United. Defenders: Seamus Coleman, Cyrus Christie, Matt Doherty, Alex Pearce, Richard Keogh, John Egan, Brentford, Shane Duffy, Kieran Clark, Declan Rice, Kevin Long. John O'Shea will obviously play his last game against the USA. Darragh Lennon, Derek Williams from Blackburn, and the Stevens, Greg Cunningham from Preston North End. Midfield: Alan Judge, Conor Hourihane, Glenn Whelan, Jeff Hendrick, Harry Arthur, Ewan O'Kane, David Myler, Shawnee Williams from Millwall. Delighted for him. Absolutely delighted for him, because he's had a superb season. He's been knocking on the door for quite a while now, so he deserves that. Alan Brown, Again, sweep the Preston Player of the Year awards the other night, and deservedly so. He's had a superb season. Daryl Horgan, Callum O'Dowda, James McLean, Johnny Walters, who we obviously had on the show a few weeks ago, saying that he would be playing on, which is great news. Shane Long, Scott Hogan, Aidan O'Brien, Millwall, game time limited lately. Sean Maguire, Callum Robinson, interestingly from Preston North End, who did say a couple of weeks ago, didn't he, that he was interested in declaring. And Graham Burke from Shamrock Rovers, that was a big call from Martin O'Neill, and great for the League of Ireland, because he was reluctant to put Shawnee Maguire in while he was still at Cork. He was in the periphery of it, but wasn't really until he went to Preston, where he got in properly and made an impact. So that's good news for the League of Ireland. Anything hit you there?
Well, the
Graham
first
Burke.
thing, it is. Graham Burke is the one thing that hits you, mainly because it's Shamrock Rovers. I mean, you never, even in these extended squads, you never expect to see anybody from the League of Ireland.
No.
I mean, who was the last player who was actually playing for a League of Ireland club to be included in one of these
The finalised squads.
No, in the actual extended squad. Did Daryl Horgan get included before he?
Daryl Horgan and Shawnee Maguire possibly were in the extended ones, but I don't, to my knowledge, I'll stand to be corrected.
Well, it's still big news.
Huge news, and especially for a Rovers team who have been struggling a little bit. He has played 21s, I'm right in saying, hasn't he?
I think so, yeah. Because he was
2 caps for the 21s.
There was talk about him being involved in the squad, and yeah, he has played underage for Ireland as far as I'm aware. And I wonder, is this just almost kind of the final nail in the coffin for his League of Ireland career, that as soon as you're an outfield player and you're included you're straight over to
Across the
England?
world, and I'm sure Stephen Bradley and the rest of the players might have something to say about that.
What sticks out to you from that? I mean, we're obviously just getting the first look at it, so it's kind of hard to form an opinion.
It's massive for a start. I don't know how many exactly is in it. Do we know, Tommy, how many was in that? There seems a hell of a lot of goalkeepers for a start. So
Well, you mentioned Sean Williams a
must be
moment
planning a
ago.
lot of five-a-sides. Shawnee Williams had a really good season at Millwall. They were so close to getting to the playoffs. They had a tough run in. Last 3 games were Middlesbrough, Fulham and Villa, I think, and just couldn't quite get there. They were behind Fulham. They were on the best unbeaten run in the Championship. I think it was 14, 15 games. So got clear of safety in and around January, February. And how many times have you seen a team just get towards mid-table safety, handbrake goes on, they're on beach mode? Wasn't the case with them. And him alongside George Saville in midfield, Sean Williams will be the more sitting, controlling midfielder. Look, Millwall play in a very direct fashion, but once the ball breaks, a commentator who I work with Sky said something in commentary during the game we covered a few weeks ago. When Sean Williams gets on the ball, everybody is in play because of his range of passing.
Right, okay.
His left foot is a wand. It really is a wand. So theoretically speaking, his style of play doesn't actually suit Millwall. But he's had to learn, I think, over the years that he's been there, to add that grit, determination, ugly, basic side of the game to his undoubted quality. So he came from MK Dons, came from Sporting Fingal initially to MK Dons as a midfielder, played a lot as a left-sided centre-half, but in an MK Dons team that plays football probably at its purest form, if you want to say split centre-halves, he's allowed to step out. Went to Millwall, different kettle of fish.
So can we give him the deep line playmaker tag?
Yeah,
And
I think so.
Obviously you know a lot about him, which is why we're talking about him, but is there enough of a stock there at the moment for him to actually be included in the final squad potentially?
Oh, I think so, because you've only got to look at the last game against Turkey where he played Alan Brown, Jeff Hendrick, and who was the third one in midfield?
Did O'Dowda start that day?
No. Who was it? But basically, he played Alan Brown as the sitter, and it's not his game. Likewise, it's not Jeff Hendrick's game. So they were having to play in that holding role. At times, Jeff swapped to let Alan Brown get on his break. Conor Horan, thank you. That was the midfield 3. None of them are particularly comfortable sitting, whereas Sean Williams has now played in a way very disciplined. So you look at that squad, him alongside Glenn Whelan, obviously, and Myler has obviously been one that has sat.
Will you play all 3 of them though?
No. I'm saying in terms of the sitters. They're the only ones that can sit in that whole squad. The rest of that midfield bunch,
You might play 2 of them
attacking.
though.
Could play 2, yeah. Could play 2. He deserves a crack. Like I was saying about Alan Brown, in terms of the season he's had, the development. Sean Williams a lot older, obviously, than Alan Brown, but in terms of ability, he'll go into that training, no problem. Won't be fazed by the game, the aura. He's I've spoken to him on a few occasions when I've been at the games as well. Good lad, and hopefully he makes the final cut. Anything else strike you with that one? Could see Declan Rice in again, obviously. Look, it's similar-ish to the Turkish squad with a few additions. Conor O'Malley, Peterborough goalkeeper.
It's 41 players.
41. Well, that's going to get trimmed to 28,
I suppose, yeah.
Ish, something like that. So there's going to be some disappointed, obviously, but I think they're all used to that at this stage. There's probably 20 that know they're going to be in the squad. Where there's a couple of injuries, players carrying injuries. There's going to be playoff players as well involved in that. Obviously, Glenn Whelan, Richard Keogh, Darren Randolph, obviously at Middlesbrough, coming up against Glenn Whelan on Saturday. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, look, it's a chance for us to see where we're going. We asked Reedy about it, what he thought, and
it's the next squad, really, isn't it, when things get interesting? Then we kind of know the pecking order that Martin O'Neill is thinking of with regards to the players who have yet to be capped, for example. That's when we'll really find out. I mean, at this point, it's like Martin O'Neill is interested. You know, he hasn't quite committed to these players quite yet. But I guess whenever he does trim it down, it's going to be, we will know for sure, the likes of Graham Burke, you would probably suspect will be doing well to make that final squad.
Yeah, I'd say so. But look, it's great for him that he's even in the provisional squad. It'll give him a massive lift. So now he needs to use that as motivation, that look, if he doesn't make it, look what's possible. Look where I can get to. The eyes are on me. Everybody's going to be looking at him now because he's been named that.
Yeah, look, I always am of the opinion when it comes to these friendlies that why not make a policy of having at least one League of Ireland player in the squad? I mean,
we spoke about it before. I'm not having this.
I know
I'm not having this idea because it shouldn't be set in stone. You should only be in it if you're good enough.
Fair enough. But if it comes down to a head-to-head and like you can easily sit back and say, oh well, the League of Ireland's going nowhere. I mean, the best players will always just go across the UK, and that will always be the case. That will never change. But why not just provide one little bit of a carrot? It's like, you know, you could be League of Ireland.
Earn it. You've got to earn it.
Of course you do. I mean,
caps like Smarties.
Graham Burke's earned it. I'm not saying to cap them. I'm saying to have them in around the final
if they're
squad.
Good enough, absolutely have them part of it as an experience, but it shouldn't be set in stone. But there certainly should be, and I think there has been an openness to it now over the last couple of years.
It's got a bit
since
better.
Daryl Horgan, since Seanie McGuire, it's opened that. So the spotlight is certainly on the League of Ireland from an English club's perspective. Scouts over all the time, especially during the summer where there's not much football happening elsewhere in Europe. Bang, they're on it. And obviously Martin O'Neill, Roy Keane, etc., they're more open to it now than certainly when they first took over. One player who's most certainly going to be in that squad, who I caught up with last night after the Manchester City game, is Shane Duffy. Let's have a little look what he had to say. Joining me, Shane Duffy. You just literally come off the pitch at Man City. Tell us a little bit about what they're like to face and the way you set up as a team to try and counteract that.
It's difficult. It's hard to explain, sort of. With you don't really want to get sucked in. They're pressing. If you press them, then you get the free or 1v1 everywhere over the pitch, and the quality they've got. So we sort of tried to compact the middle of the pitch and try and get them out wide and crosses, and hopefully the lads we could try and cut the crosses out. But yeah, it's difficult as a champions for a reason, and as you've seen now, they already won the league and they were sort of in cruise control. So it was a difficult night, but we're still proud of ourselves, obviously, coming here and trying to give it a go anyway.
With the run-in you had, you knew it was up against it, and you was reaching to get those points at the bar. How big of a game was that game on Friday, and how much did you put that one up in terms of, look, this might be our best chance being the last home game?
Yeah, I think inside the change room we sort of knew we're at home. We're quite dangerous in United. On their day we can sort of get at them. They're a little bit sometimes, and when you look at these two fixtures, sort of the last two, you're thinking you couldn't ask for two any worse. So we probably put everything into that, and as I said, probably a little bit of energy took out of it. Of course, we put so much effort into that one, and coming to the Champions is obviously tough. But yeah, we're happy that was done. We didn't need any points coming into these last two games, but as I said, we've still one more to go, and it's obviously another big one.
You've been on some journey. Talk to me about your club-wise to start with. So I've seen your development quite closely in terms of Yeovil, the loan moves, and in Blackburn. Each time you've stepped up, you seem to just go with ease, then you go on to Brighton, you get your promotion, Premier League. So each year it seems as if it's been a step up that you've relished by the looks of it.
Yeah, I'm just being honest. I'm just enjoying it. I'm quite lucky. Starting off, I was very raw and late in the development, and when I moved into the academy football, I was so far behind, sort of, where I've had to learn the game slow and go down the levels to sort of learn the game of football. And then obviously moving to Blackburn, was playing regular at a good club, but we weren't obviously progressing as a club. But then moving to Brighton has obviously helped me better players, and the manager's been great, and obviously helping with Ireland, getting a chance to play it in the big stage is obviously good for my confidence, and I feel like I can belong there now, and I'm not really nervous going out there about I'll be able to handle it. I just feel like I can get better, and it's just slow development with me really, and I just got to keep going, keep progressing, and hopefully I can each year get better and better, hopefully, and just keep a level-headed sort of.
Tell us a little bit about Chris, in terms, you mentioned him, but you've come into this club, the way the team's set up and the partnership that you've had with Lewis Dunk, how much has that helped, and what's he done for your game in particular that's kicked you on?
I don't know, he's great with everyone. He believes in you, sort of, where maybe if you have a couple of bad games and your manager wants to change it, but he just sticks with you, and he gives you confidence of sort of doing it. He just simplifies my game really, and I sort of with Donkey, we sort of know each other, where we all know what he can do and I can do, and I let him get on with doing his good stuff, and he sort of lets me just go on and win it, and it just bounces off each other, and he doesn't get the credit sort of he deserves, the manager, and it's just the credit that he's getting this season now for keeping Brighton in this season up, and he's huge, and he never gets too far of himself if we're doing well, or never too low if we get low, and it's good for the lads' confidence, and it's great, and hopefully we can go on now again, and hopefully we can strengthen in the summer and have another good season, hopefully.
You've got a few internationals coming up the end of the season, 2, maybe 3. Still find out tomorrow actually. You've become a massive figure. I remember the big game for you was the game just before the Euros in March. Remember the friendly stars?
The Switzerland game. Yeah.
You were magnificent. I was on commentary in that game, and I mentioned in commentary about players taking opportunities when they come. There's a lot of people frown about friendly internationals. I got my debut in an international friendly, relished it, grasped the opportunity. From then, you've kicked on. I keep mentioning the steps that you take. Now, you're such a big player for us, and you're such a leader within that new group of leaders that we have with Seamus, Robbie, Jeff, James McLean. Do you feel that now? You've already mentioned you feel part of it and you're ready. Do you feel like you deserve to be there? And
I don't know. It's I think with my performances, I feel like I've done steady. Obviously, I've had a few lows with Ireland, with the sending off in the France game, and then I've had a bad moment in Moldova away where it's a different feeling, because you've your whole country sort of on your back if you make a mistake, or you're do
you feel that different pressure when you play
Florence? Of course, 100%. I felt it after France, obviously. Sort of came in against Italy, no one knew me, and the France game's such a big game for them. And then I felt so low after. I felt like, he probably doesn't trust me no more, and then I just sort of went back to where I was good at, and I've been lucky because I know the manager, I know what he likes, and it's sort of my game, and it helps me a lot. But as you say, going in, I always feel like I go in like it's my first squad. I feel like I go in and have to impress him, and I know you sort of have this feeling where he likes some he always plays, but I always feel like it always rubs off me with Seamus, where Seamus always is on people, and I always feel like you always say you play, but you don't know, and I always go in thinking, I hope I get another cap this trip, and that's my outlet, and I think I can never change, because I get too far ahead of myself, and I think, and then my performances might drop, and at that level it'll punish you, and you see the likes of like John and Robbie and the ones who have over 100 caps. You've got to stay at that level and be at that level if you want to get so far, and that's my outlook every time I go away. Hopefully every squad, I hope I'm in the squad. And
have you changed though from when you first came in and you got those few games? So say Euro 2016 past then the last campaign, have you changed in your approach in any way? Because that game, go back to that game for me, right? I'm in commentary and I'm saying and I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
You're leading already, and I've played against you, and I hear you on a pitch, and it's something that we don't often see now from younger players, but it's in you.
I just felt like I felt like this might be my only chance. So I thought, you know what, if Johnny Walters turns around and says, "Who do you think you are?" That's alright, because at least I know it was me in my game. I didn't have to wait until I had 30 caps to do it. I just feel like it's in my game, and I've got the same here at Brighton where, listen, I'm in a position, if I don't tell them they go and score, I feel like it's my fault. And yeah, it has changed a little bit because I've more ease with the players, and as you know yourself, it's a lot more comfortable every time. I don't sit in my room as much. I sit at dinner, have a coffee. It's just, you feel more a part of it. And probably on the pitch helped me, because I did talk on the pitch and the lads were thinking, alright, he can tell you and things like that, and it's been great. And every time I go there I love it. And yeah, that's sort of my game, just going on. If I have to tell someone a bad thing, I'm not afraid to tell them, and I expect it the other way about if I'm not on it. So that's just a part of the game, I suppose.
I was the exact same in terms of my approach and the way I would have played. Where are we at the moment, right? There's been a lot of negativity. We've had the international in March. We've got these games now where we're introducing some of the, I wouldn't say younger players, but new players that's probably been needed. We've seen some of the lads retiring. John O'Shea announced it today. Where are we at the moment? Is there positivity? Are we looking forward to the next campaign?
I think you've got to look at the players what we've still got now, the experience of, like, Seamus was such a big miss, and then you've got him back, and then you've got Braid, then a core of the team, and then you've got to look at the excitement of young Declan. You've got Scotty Hogan, Sean Maguire breaking through. You've got good players there, and just people probably think, because they're not Premier League footballers, it doesn't mean they can't play on the stage. And we've all came from there where we all got the chance to play, and then it develops and you might get a player. But I'm excited. I think sometimes an old sort of thing can like get a bit stale, and it can go, oh well, it's the same thing. But I'm excited. I've seen things against Turkey where it was good, and I think you've got to be excited. I think the core of the team is in their mid-20s and pushing on and playing well, and hopefully we can get a couple more players breaking through. And you never know, a couple coming out of nowhere like I did myself, and you never know. But I'm excited. I think you have to be, and I think always with a core Ireland under the manager and Roy, I think you'll always get a good team effort, and hopefully we can qualify for the Euros. I think there's no one stopping us.
Well, I go back to, we missed out on the World Cup in 2010 in some dodgy circumstances. That galvanised us as a group, and there was only a few introductions. It was the main squad, and there was nothing really said as such, but when we got together for that next kind of step, that next chapter, you could just sense that little bit of this ain't slipping us, boy. You've had this taste of 2016, you've had the disappointment now of not getting to a World Cup. Do you think you can, it'll galvanise us maybe to kick on?
I think you've got to. I think it's our own fault if we don't. I think you've got to look at the experience, the senior players, and if they can bring them in and gel them in it quick as we can. And like the last squad, I think Shane Long says I don't know half of them, and it's because he hasn't, because he's been around there so long. And people says, well, do you remember when you first came in? And it's just that quick now, and he's just like, I can't believe how quick it's gone, how they do turn around. You know yourself, it just turns around in different squads, different players. And I think it's down to the players. I think if we don't succeed, it's our own fault, and we've got to give it everything. And there's not many who have gone. I think we still got a good core, and the manager's played new ones recently and done well. And you've got players playing the Premier League now who are stepping up and playing well every week. And if we can take that on the stage and the friendlies, and we can judge ourselves where we are sort of from there, and then the manager can go on and get a sort of, he likes to have his 11 or maybe one or two changes. As soon as he knows that, we can settle down.
I wish you the best. Can't wait for you.
See you too.
Nice to catch up with him. He actually played very well last night, as you'd expect. Man City had a lot of possession, penetrating in there at the final tour. Man City not at their best, but him and Dunk, really, really good partnership. Best defensive partnership in the Championship by a country mile last year, in my opinion. Better than Lascelles and Clark. And this year, in the way that Chris sets the team up, it suits him. And I think you mentioned it there as well. It suits him with Ireland as well. And he's become a massive player for both club and country. And he's one of not many of our players that are playing regularly in a Premier League team.
Yeah, for sure. You'd imagine that Duffy and Dunk staying fit for a good portion of the season was the main reason why Brighton have stayed up. It was very early in the season when people started to identify that these guys meant business. I think it was, I'm going to say week 3 before Match of the Day 2 did a feature on Duffy and Dunk. You don't often see that with a centre-back partnership that had just got promoted from the Championship. And like, he's a stalwart straight away. I mean, like, I kind of feared when it came to Shane Duffy that he would go down in history as the guy who made the mistake against France, and that's not going to happen now because he's going
way past that, isn't he?
Yeah, unfortunately that goal against Denmark is definitely not what he's going to be remembered for because of what happened after that, but he is on the verge of becoming one of the great Irish centre-backs, one of the people that we remember certainly in this modern era of centre-back.
Because he still wants this, you can hear it in him, and he's on his toes. He's not complacent. Every squad, he's like, oh, am I in the squad? I'm in the squad. Great. I'm trying. I want to play. There's that kind of. He's not content. Every step, and I mentioned this to him. I think it was before or after I spoke to him. I said, every step you've taken in your career, Yeovil, gone and done it. Step up, Blackburn, no problem. Get the move to Brighton, Championship, Bosch. During that time, debut for Ireland, playing regularly for Ireland, become a stalwart for Ireland, Premier League. He's just taken them all. No problem.
I guess there's a sense of humility about that as well, about almost knowing your place, about where you are in the world, and even if you're playing very, very well for Brighton at the top of the Championship, it's like, right, this is a whole new chapter in my career when I go to the Premier League. I've got to start again, reset my goals, come back to this humble level of being, and he's clearly well able to do that, as you've mentioned, with the squad lists every time when he's not sure, or not 100% sure if he's going to make those squads. Being able to reset those levels isn't something that every footballer can do, because everybody's told you you're amazing from the minute you first kick the ball.
No, he hasn't got that, as he's got that skill. Nice, and I'm a big fan of his. Right, I just want to touch on West Ham Man United playing tonight. Reading through the papers this morning, a couple of quotes. I'm struggling to kind of comprehend these. Jose Mourinho: unless there's a perfect squad where you buy one goalkeeper you don't like and you buy another one, you buy a central defender you don't like and you buy another one. Unless you can do that and you go in the direction of the perfect squad, you have to keep players you don't love and players you don't really believe in and have the level of the squad.
Who's he purchased there, Keith?
Staggering. So summer signings 2016, Zlatan, Pogba, 90 million, Mkhitaryan, Victor Lindelof, hardly kicked the ball. 2017, Lukaku, 75 million, Matic, Alexis Sanchez in January just gone. I don't want to harp on about this, but some of the nonsense that is coming out of that building is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I mentioned about Man City last night. I was at the game. I genuinely believe if Jose Mourinho was in charge of Manchester City this year, they would not have won the league. Man United would have won the league if Pep had been in charge. So if roles reversed, Pep would have won the league with Man United this year. No doubt about it. Man United, for me, showed what they are capable of in the second half against Manchester City recently. That is what they are capable of when the handbrake is off, when the backs are to the wall. But somebody needs to tell Jose it's not all about signing checks and getting players in the building. It's what you do with the players when you get them in the building.
Yeah, he's become this immovable object in terms of his mentality towards football, in terms of his tactical approach to football. I don't give him till the end of next season. I think that Manchester United will wake up and smell the roses with Jose Mourinho, that he is past it. Unless he miraculously reinvents himself, which he can do. Jose Mourinho can become a good manager once again, but Jose Mourinho is never going to be open to the ideas that are required for him to become a Pep-level manager. He will never be on Pep's level, ever, because he's way too stubborn. Maybe with a little bit of a shift of mentality, he might be able to. I just can't see it happening. I can see it getting to February, March next year. There's still, 12, 15 points off the lead at that point in the Premier League, and Manchester United are like, cut our losses. Let's just get set up for next season. I can see that happening. I really hope it doesn't. It would be a good narrative, even for people like us who hate Jose Mourinho, for him to have another great act in a pretty glorious managerial career. But
glorious is right, but it's just...
I just can't see it happening.
Those type of quotes are starting to get to me now, and I've nothing to do with Man United, so I can only imagine what I'd be feeling if I was in that dressing room he was talking about me and that type of... Anyway, I need to move on. Playoffs season, boom.
On the bandwagon.
Get into the crunch. Are you jumping on it now, are you?
Of course I am.
You're all right. You're not one of the snobs in this building, to be fair, that don't watch football outside of the top 10 in the Premier League. So 3 games to get 200 million quid plus. Nerves, pressure. We've got Derby against Fulham tomorrow night in Derby. Return leg in Fulham on Monday. Fulham went into Sunday with a chance to get an automatic. Didn't happen against Birmingham. 24 games would have been unbeaten. They have been on a phenomenal run, and a lot of people were calling the Cardiff Fulham kind of jostle as Beauty versus the Beast. The most direct team in the Championship, Cardiff, against the least direct in Fulham. Play the best football in terms of the purest form, possession based, penetrate. Really good to watch. Derby, for years now, third time in 5 years they've been in the playoffs. They fall short. But I think with Gary Rowett in charge, and they have come back into form as of late, I wouldn't rule them out.
See, the thing I'm confused about here with Fulham, like you just outlined there, they're clearly one of the best teams in the Championship, clearly the informed side. Do you weigh the 23 games unbeaten heavier than the fact that they've bottled the chance to get automatic promotion to the Premier League? And I would actually give higher importance to the bottling job. I mean, it's like you look at some of the best players who are clearly young players. Take Ryan Sessegnon, for example. I mean, is he the type of player now? I don't know. Maybe he's stronger than I think. But he's the sort of player that I look at and I'm like, this is a real sense of adversity against you now at this point, because you're part of a squad that had such an amazing opportunity to avoid what is famously one of the biggest snake pits in sport, which is the Championship playoffs. So I think that's going to get into their mentality a little bit. I mean, you talk about playoff football. Is that suited to a team that plays such good football, that are about the process and will score the goals eventually against, of course, they're a results-driven team as well. But say if that was Cardiff on the other foot, I'm backing Cardiff in that playoff all the time. Now, do Derby have that? I'm not so sure. But they've obviously got a great goal scorer in Vidra, who's top scorer in the Championship, I think. Like, I mean, that a goal scorer will at least 50% of the time will come out on top in these in the 4-way Championship playoffs. I think the top scorer has been involved in the playoffs quite a bit, and they often come out on top. The one thing, though, is this cliche about whatever the third place to the sixth place. This cliche that whoever's first in that little 4-way will never get through. That's not the case.
Nonsense.
I mean, that's
nonsense.
It's the exact opposite of that. Whoever's in third place, I think it is 40% of the time, have got promoted.
This is where you feel sorry for Fulham, because they finished on 88 points. 18 of the last 19 years, that would have got them automatic promotion. They have been so good for, well, literally the last 3-4 months playing that style of football. But Derby, they've just turned it around in time. So I don't know what Fulham. You've said about which one do you bear more, in the 23 games or the one game. It was dismal against Birmingham on Sunday to lose 3-1 when there's a chance. If they had won the game, look, I was at the Cardiff game. Cardiff played out the second half. It was like a testimonial. So it suited Cardiff, it suited Reading. It was a non-event in the second half. They could have and probably would have pushed on and won the game.
They knew what was happening.
Exactly. You hear the chance around. But I genuinely think the other one, Middlesbrough against Villa on Saturday, I think it's the toughest one to call in years. Last year, nobody fancied Huddersfield. They were the team that finished third. They dropped into it. They were jostling with Newcastle and Brighton for the automatics, dropped into it. Everybody fancied Fulham last year, finishing sixth with the momentum. There's no one team out of those 4 that you would say has massive momentum. Ironically, you'd say Fulham, because of the run they've been, and take that one result out of the equation.
23 out of 24 games unbeaten.
So in terms of that, you would say them. The others, like Middlesbrough against Villa, Tony Pulis against Steve Bruce, that is going to be a cagey affair. When I look at the other one, there's a contrast of styles. Fulham against Derby. Derby, for me, need to make it as ugly as possible. They need to sacrifice their egos and worry about Fulham. Whereas Middlesbrough Villa is going to be proper cagey. Both wiry foxes. Bruce has had 4 promotions, 2 at Birmingham, 2 at Hull. Pulis has done it with Stoke, been in the Premier League, got that know-how. Really experienced squads as well. Couldn't tell you what way I see that. I genuinely, I don't know who's going to come through that. I haven't even got an inkling.
I've got a feeling that we're going to be sitting here in a couple of weeks' time, and you know that evil laugh that Tony Pulis does when he's just parked the bus against Manchester United and come away with a 0-0. That evil laugh is going to get even more evil and more evil as the days and weeks go by, and we're going to see Tony Pulis back in the Premier League. That's the way I see it going.
Yeah.
But
there are a lot of people's fancy. So in the last week, as you kind of know they're in it, you know Villa are in it, it's going to be Fulham or Cardiff. A lot of people are talking up Middlesbrough, but last year everybody was talking up Fulham.
But the Middlesbrough talk, in all seriousness, is based on Tony Pulis, really. I mean, he is the joker in the pack that they've got there that really outweighs the other teams. Fulham are the best team here. Fulham are the best team here. I mean, you can't make an argument that Middlesbrough have a better squad than Fulham. I don't think.
No.
They clearly don't play as good football as Fulham, but ultimately when it comes down to the playoffs, that doesn't matter. The two legs does work in Fulham's favour, I feel. If it was just a one semi-final, I'm like...
Middlesbrough have got Traore, who's playing against his former club. Absolutely blistering pace. And
it's ironic that Pulis could be the man to resurrect him.
Exactly. Ironically, Pulis resurrecting an attacking player. I've been at their games. He literally, on the sideline, screams, "Get the ball to Adama."
Really, yeah?
Get the ball to Traore. Because basically, he is Roy the Rover style stuff. So, look, I'm really, really looking forward to it. Both games, both legs over the weekend. Before we go, I just want to touch on the Irish under 17s, who I was with last year. They're playing their final game tomorrow against Bosnia. They got a good win the other day, so they're level on points with Bosnia. Better goal difference. I think it kicks off at 1 o'clock tomorrow at St George's Park. So Colin O'Brien, Ian Hill, Josh Moore and all the staff, want to wish them all the best, and hopefully they can get through to the quarterfinals.
And Troy Parrott, potentially one of the greatest names in Irish footballing history. Will he have one of the greatest careers in Irish football?
John's nephew.
I think so. He's some relation. He must be. His name is Parrott and he's involved in sport.
Can't be that many. No, he's a promising young player. He's not a player I've worked with, but he's signed up long term at Spurs, came from Belvedere. But there's a lot of very, very talented young players in that squad that, again, all promise, on potential about what they do in the next few years. But listen, we've gone over already. That's about all time we've got time for. West Brom are down. Swansea are pretty much gone. Stoke relegated. So a few weeks ago I was over at Burnley and caught up with John Walters. Here he is on Stoke's demise. You can also watch back the Burnley FC special from the Keith Andrews Show over on youtube.com/off the ball. You'll catch all our other episodes there as well, including interviews with Kevin Doyle, AP McCoy, Stephen Kelly and much more. That's all we have time for. Owen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate that.
Cheers,
I'm going to leave you with Johnny Walters.
I feel for them at the moment. Frustrating watching them.
My take on them is that I've watched us down through the years and played against us obviously a few years before that. They always tried to, in my opinion, replace the likes of you, the likes of Glenn Whelan, and then they always then had to revert back to you, to Glenn Whelan, because they know exactly what they're going to get and they need players like you in the building, whereas the recruitment for a long time now hasn't been at the level that it's at, and it's probably going to cost them this year.
No, look, we felt like that when it was there. It was every year, but I think that's the case. Look, as a club, you do well. You always want to make that next step, so you do well. Someone always comes in to take your place, and you've got to step up to the mark. And that was the case for many years when I was there. There must have been 8 or 9 strikers coming in during the time I was there, even though I played on the right, probably 90% of the games. So you've got to step up to the mark, and that was the case. And, at my time, I felt probably wasn't needed as much and felt like it was time to go at the end of last season. And say recruitment probably hasn't been right. You look at the players that have come in, big players, big wages spent and big expectations, but there's always that worry when you step up to the next level. They might be good players, but they're not at those top clubs for a reason, or they've left those top clubs for a reason. They've got the ability, but have they got the attitude? And as you know yourself, it's not about ability most of the time.